Lena hid in a corner as a ghostly figure approached her. It knew exactly where she was hiding and was now standing right in front of her. Hi friends, Rose here. Today I will be telling you a story about Lena and her spooky encounter with a ghost nurse at a clinic. Lena was a bright and curious 12-year-old who loved solving mysteries. Her mom worked late shifts at the Avatar City Clinic, a small but busy medical center on the edge of town. Lena often spent her evenings in the waiting room, doing homework or reading books while her mom worked. But recently she had started noticing something strange about the clinic. It all began when Lena overheard the night staff whispering about Nurse Evelyn. They spoke in hushed tones as if afraid she might hear them. According to their stories, Nurse Evelyn was a ghostly figure who appeared after dark, wandering the halls of the clinic. She's harmless, one nurse assured another. But it's still spooky seeing her glide through the halls. Lena's ears perked up. A ghost nurse? That sounded like a mystery worth investigating. One crisp autumn evening, Lena decided to stay later than usual. Her mom was busy with a patient, so Lena tucked herself into a corner of the waiting room with her notebook and flashlight. She was determined to learn the truth about Nurse Evelyn. As the clock struck midnight, the clinic grew eerily quiet. The bright overhead lights dimmed, leaving only the soft glow of emergency lighting in the hallways. Lena's heart raced as she heard the faint creak of footsteps coming from down the hall. Slowly, she peeked around the corner. A figure in a crisp white uniform moved gracefully through the corridor. Her hair was neatly pinned, and she carried an old-fashioned clipboard. But what struck Lena the most was how Nurse Evelyn seemed to glow, a soft, silvery light surrounding her. Lena ducked back behind the wall, clutching her notebook. She couldn't believe her eyes. For a moment, she thought she was hallucinating due to staying up late last night. But no. The stories were true. But as the night wore on, something else began to happen. Lena started to feel as though the nurse was watching her. Over the next few nights, Lena's fascination with Nurse Evelyn turned into unease. Every time she tried to observe the nurse, it felt like the ghostly figure was aware of her presence. Once, Lena could have sworn she saw Nurse Evelyn glance directly at her, her silvery eyes locking onto Lena's hiding spot. That night, Lena dreamed of the nurse, her glowing figure leaning over her bed and whispering, "Why are you here?" At first, Lena dismissed the dream as her imagination running wild. But the next evening, as she sat in the waiting room, the air grew heavy, and a cold breeze swept through the room. The lights flickered, and Lena heard Nurse Evelyn's soft voice, though no one was there. "You're curious, aren't you?" the voice whispered. Lena froze. Her hands gripped her notebook tightly. "Who's there?" she managed to squeak. But the voice didn't respond. Instead, a shadow passed by the waiting room door, and Lena knew it was Nurse Evelyn. Lena's curiosity grew stronger, but now it was tinged with fear. Why was Nurse Evelyn haunting her? What did the ghostly nurse want? Lena remembered reading about ghosts who targeted specific people for a reason. Maybe Nurse Evelyn was trying to tell her something. That night, Lena decided to confront the nurse. She waited until the clock struck midnight and followed the faint glow of Nurse Evelyn through the darkened halls. Her heart pounded as she called out, "Nurse Evelyn, why are you haunting me?" The glowing figure stopped and turned. For a moment, her kind smile returned. "You're the only one who sees me," she said softly. "The others look past me, but you're different." Lena swallowed hard. "Why me? What do you want?" Nurse Evelyn's form flickered. Her voice grew more solemn. "There's something I need you to do. Something I cannot do myself." Despite the shock of speaking to a literal ghost that can only be seen by herself taking her aback, Lena couldn't stop thinking about Nurse Evelyn's words. The next day, she returned to the archives. This time, she searched through old patient records, looking for anything unusual from the 1950s. Finally, she found it. A young boy named Timothy had been a patient at the clinic in 1952. According to the records, he had a serious illness but had mysteriously disappeared before completing his treatment. Nurse Evelyn had been his primary caregiver. Lena's heart raced. Although not sure, something was telling her she had cracked the case and could maybe help the nurse. Could Timothy be the reason Nurse Evelyn was still here? Maybe she felt she had failed him. But why was she haunting Lena? That night, Nurse Evelyn appeared again. This time, Lena didn't hide. She held out the records and asked, "Do you remember Timothy?" Nurse Evelyn's glowing eyes widened. Timothy? Yes, I remember him. He was such a brave little boy. But one day he vanished. I never knew what happened to him. Lena took a deep breath. I think he's the reason you're still here. Maybe you feel like you failed him, but I can help you find out what happened. With Nurse Evelyn's guidance, Lena pieced together Timothy's story. The ghostly nurse showed her places in the clinic where Timothy had spent his days, the room where he had rested, the corner where he had played with a wooden toy horse. As Lena walked through the halls, she felt the weight of Nurse Evelyn's sadness. Finally, Lena decided to search online for Timothy's name. To her amazement, she found an article about an elderly man named Timothy who had recently celebrated his 80th birthday. The article mentioned that he had survived a serious childhood illness and gone on to live a full life. An idea came into her mind. She now knew what to do in order to help the poor nurse. Lena showed the article to Nurse Evelyn. Tears glistened in the ghost's glowing eyes. He made it, she whispered. He lived. Yes, he did, Lena said. He did not succumb to his sickness. You helped him recover and live a healthy life, nurse. You are right, the nurse said. Maybe I didn't fail. That night, Lena went back home feeling all happy that she helped Nurse Evelyn figure out what happened to the little boy, and now she could be at peace. But that was not the case. But even as Nurse Evelyn expressed her relief, her presence around Lena grew stronger. The lights in the clinic flickered more often, and Lena's dreams were filled with the nurse's soft voice. You're special, Lena, the voice said one night. You've helped me find peace, but I cannot leave until you understand. Lena woke with a start. Understand what? She felt as though she were missing something important, but she got no answers. Confused, she decided she would confront the nurse later at the clinic and deal with it once and for all. The next night, as Nurse Evelyn appeared, Lena asked, What do you mean? What else do I need to do? The nurse smiled sadly. You remind me of myself, she said. Curious, determined, and kind. I've watched over this clinic for decades, hoping to find someone like you. You've not only helped me find peace, but you've shown me that my legacy will live on. Lena's chest tightened. Are you saying goodbye? Nurse Evelyn nodded. It's time for me to rest, but don't worry. You'll always feel me here, watching over you. With that, Nurse Evelyn's glowing form began to fade. As the first rays of dawn lit up the clinic, she disappeared, leaving behind a sense of warmth and calm. Lena never saw Nurse Evelyn again, but she often felt her presence in the clinic. Whenever she visited, the halls seemed a little brighter, the air a little warmer, and Lena knew that, in her own way, Nurse Evelyn would always be there, watching over the place she loved. Her mom would often find her hanging about in the clinic long after her shift was over. At first, she didn't care much about it, but one day she decided to ask her daughter what was going on. Lena, why do you stay up so later even after my shift has ended? Lena took a moment to respond, saying that, because one day I am going to work in this very same clinic and I make Nurse Evelyn proud.